Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the 11th episode of the story, where Might Guy trades Neji and Tenten for Naruto and Hinata. Can he turn this motley crew of misfits into a team of geniuses? Or will he be compelled to stop wearing spandex for good? Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel after watching the video. So, let us begin. Haku-kun. Tucci greeted the only customer who ever came in before the sun was up anymore. Good morning. Haku bowed. He didn't want to admit it, but every day since Team Guy had left, he had come here to eat a bowl of ramen. Would that be the usual for you? The older man smiled and began making the noodles. Haku nodded as he took his seat. There you are. Haku turned a curious gaze to Ayam, who had just emerged from the back. Tomorrow is the day of the finals. I thought you said Lee would be back by now. The day has only just started, Ayam-san. Lee-san will be back. Just give him time. Haku spoke irritably. Ayam had been in a foul mood since Lee had left without saying anything again. That didn't give her the right to take it out on him though. She was right though. It had been 3 weeks now since they had left. In that time Haku hadn't heard anything from them. He had no way of knowing how his friends were doing at all. If he was going to be perfectly honest, he felt left out. Strange, Haku mused. He never would have imagined that he could feel that way. Proof that living in Konoha had really changed him. The two of us are going to have a long talk when he gets back. Ayam continued to rant as she diced up vegetables. Just because he is a shinobi doesn't mean he can just run off all the time without saying anything. Who does he think he is? He's like 3 years younger than me, for crying out loud. Sounds like someone missed me. Haku whirled around in surprise and Ayam dropped her knife. Standing right behind the genin was Lee himself. Lee-san, you're back. Haku shouted uncharacteristically. What about Naruto-san and Hinata-san? We're right here. Naruto raised the flaps in front of the noodle stand and walked in. Hinata appeared right next to him. It's good to see you guys again. How was training? Where did you go? Haku was firing off questions before he even realized it. More importantly, what are you guys wearing exactly? Haku hadn't noticed until Ayam asked her question, but all three of them were dressed strangely. These are our karategi. We wore them while we were training. Lee rubbed the soft material of his shirt as he answered her question. I never thought I'd see you in something other than spandex. Haku admitted aloud. Personally, I think this is an improvement. Ayam muttered from behind the counter. If you don't switch back to the spandex, I promise to forget about all the yelling at you I was going to do. That might be an offer worth taking. Naruto plopped down on one of the stools. Hey old man, 3 miso. Coming right up, Naruto. Tucci was overjoyed at having his best customer back. I'm afraid I won't be giving up spandex. I will gladly accept any punishment you are willing to give. Lee bowed low to the girl behind the stand. I apologize for my actions lately. I have just been caught up in preparing for this exam. Ayam drummed her fingers on the counter as she stared at Lee for a while. Damn. She finally sighed. You know I can't stay so mad at you if you apologize like that. Ayam continued to chop up vegetables. Don't think that means I won't yell at you after this tournament is over though. She grumbled as an afterthought. Yes. Lee took a seat now as well. Say, Haku. Naruto called just as he was sitting back down as well. Yes, Naruto-san. Haku looked over Lee's shoulders to meet Naruto's gaze. Any luck on finding a teammate yet? As Naruto asked his question, a bowl was slid in front of him. Without waiting for an answer, he began to inhale it. Haku shook his head and talked anyways. Not yet. No genin is in need of a team right now, so it may be a while. I have been meeting with Tamara-san regularly though. It turns out that there is a lot to learn from her, so we've been training together. What have you been learning? Hinata asked curiously. Naruto's face was still buried inside the bowl. My Kekii Genkai is a combination of the water and wind affinities. This means I can use both types of jutsu with greater ease than normally. However, Zabuzasan was only capable of teaching me Suiton. Tamarisen happens to have a little knowledge of Futon though, and she's been helping me learn it. Naruto finished his first bowl. I should see if she can teach me something too. My affinity is wind after all. You wouldn't know it with the way you pump out Suiton though. I suppose having so much chakra makes it easy to do whatever you want. Haku didn't want to say it in front of Hinata, but he doubted Temari would be too thrilled at the idea of teaching Naruto anything, especially after their last encounter. Aren't you going with that Temari girl to the festival tonight? Ayam asked as she leaned over the counter. Festival? Naruto asked, suddenly curious. You know the festival they have every time the exams are held here? The festival you and Lee will be taking Hinata and me too. Ayam sent Lee a dangerous look as she said this. Do I have to dress up? This was the first Naruto had heard of it. He had never been to a festival before. Not really, just wear your summer clothes. You better get ready to see Hinata in a yukata though. Will you also be in one? Lee asked hopefully. Of course I will be. Ayam stood proudly. You better compliment me on it too. That's a 5-point deduction if you don't. Yes. I will shower you with the most youthful of compliments until I run out of breath or pass out. Lee stood up so fast to salute that he knocked the stool over. Speaking of yukata, will Tamarisen be in one? Ayam just chose to ignore Lee's crazy antics. Haku's nod was barely visible. Sakura-san said she would lend her one for the night. He mumbled quietly. Lee noticed that his face was tinted slightly pink but chose not to say anything. So where's your sensei? Tucci asked as he set down Naruto's next bowl. He is informing Hokage-sama that we've returned. Hinata answered while she watched Naruto inhale his newest bowl. So we should set up a meeting spot for tonight. Ayam continued to talk about the festival, a happy gleam in her eye. Why don't we just meet here? Naruto asked as he finished his next bowl. Why does it always have to be here? Can't it be someone else's house? Ayam protested. We all know where this place is. It makes it convenient. Naruto pointed his chopsticks at her as he made his point. Fine, let's meet here. You better let Tamarisen know. Tell her 6 o'clock. Ayam said as she turned back to Haku. I will. Haku nodded. If we got that all set, I'd like to go home and change. Naruto finished his last bowl, which no one had even seen him start. Hinata nodded. I must let my father know as well that I am back. She stood up with Naruto. I'll walk you home. Naruto muttered awkwardly. Hinata smiled when he said that. I'd appreciate it. Bowing to everyone, the two of them left together. You mind if I accompany you around, Haku-kun? I sure you want to know all about the intense training we endured. Lee asked as he turned to the ice user. Not at all. I had planned to go home and wait for Naruto-san after informing Tamarisen of our plans anyways. Haku laid his money on the table as he stood up. Excellent. Well then, I look forward to seeing you later tonight, Ayam. Lee gave the older girl a flashy smile. That's what I like to hear. You won't lose any points tonight if you keep that up. Ayam gave him a thumbs up as he and Haku walked away. What exactly do those points that she is talking about do? Haku looked at Lee expectantly. I have no idea. I just go with it. Lee responded blissfully. Damn it, why are we always late? Naruto shouted as he ran through the crowded streets of Konoha with Haku and Lee. If you didn't get so off track, things like this wouldn't happen. Haku irritably responded. I'm sure if we explain they will forgive us. Lee said hopefully as the ramen stand came into sight. You're late. Temari and I yelled together. It was Naruto's fault. Lee and Haku said immediately. What the hell happened to explaining it to them? Naruto felt completely betrayed. Just when I was starting to have a better opinion of you lately too. They all turned in surprise to see Sakura standing there as well. Are you coming with us? Naruto asked in surprise. He hadn't expected to see her here. Sakura shook her head though. I'm meeting up with Kiba and Shino. Oh, how is Shino? Naruto had forgotten that Shino had lost his arm until just now. He's doing a lot better. He still has to take things slowly and the skin is still tender. Sakura had a faraway look as she talked about it. He keeps saying that he'll be fine but I worry about him. Naruto chuckled slightly. What's so funny? I'm being serious. Sakura raised her fist to hit him. It's just funny to hear you worry about him like that. He used to creep you and all the other girls in class out. Naruto scratched his head. I didn't mean to laugh though, I'm sorry. No, Sakura looked down sadly. You're right about that. Hey, don't worry about it. Naruto pushed her shoulder lightly. You're making up for it now by caring so much. Thank you, Naruto. Sakura looked up and smiled at him. I'll see you later. Goodbye, everyone. Hinata looked at the rest of them and bowed before she began walking away. Ahem. Ayam cleared her throat as she looked at the boys expectantly. Oh, yes. Lee shouted and suddenly stood much straighter. He quickly nudged both of the other boys. Just like we practiced. Lee whispered to them. Haku and Naruto both grumbled quietly before turning to the girls with Lee. You look very good in your yukata. They all said at once. Ayam smacked her forehead. It loses its effect if you all say the same thing. She shouted at them. Right, we shall try again. Lee opened his mouth to say more. Don't bother, it sounds gross coming from you guys anyway. Temari sneered. Naruto was surprised, he expected her to be glaring at him but instead she was looking at Haku. Naruto thought about voicing this but the feeling of someone wrapping around his arm caught his attention. Thank you for the compliment, Naruto-kun. Hinata said while smiling up at him. I want to go goldfish scooping. I heard there is a stall just down the street. Yeah, Naruto allowed Hinata to pull him away, a huge blush on his face. Lee and Haku glared at him jealously. Why can't our dates be like that? Lee mumbled. You say something? Nothing. We should follow after them. I'll be sure to win you something, I am. Lee grabbed a hold of her arm and immediately dragged her off. Lee! What did I say about dragging me? Ayam yelled in protest as she barely managed to keep Lee's pace. Haku and Temari watched for a few moments in silence. So shall we go after them? Haku mumbled while trying not to meet Temari's eyes. Instead of responding, Temari began walking after the others. I'll take that as a yes. Haku sighed while he followed her. It didn't take them long to get to the goldfish scooping stall where Naruto and Lee were already in a deep debate. I could totally catch one way before you. Naruto yelled. Nonsense. When it comes to goldfish scooping, I am a master. Lee proclaimed proudly. You want to test that? Naruto grabbed one of the paper fish nets. Yeah, how about this, loser has to pay for anything the winner and his date wants. Lee grabbed his own. You're on. Hurry up and grab yours, Haku. Both boys turned to the only boy not in the conversation. Huh? Haku pointed to himself. When did I get involved? Just go. Temari pushed him forward. But Tamarazan, you better win. I intend to make them buy me a lot. Temari had an evil glint in her eye that made Kao shiver slightly. Yes, ma'am. Haku sighed in defeat as he walked forward and grabbed his own goldfish scoop. So how does this work? He asked as he spun it around with his hand. Just catch the fish. Naruto was already staring the fish down as he held his net in a ready position. You have to get one before us, not that it will happen. Lee was shaking in anticipation. Haku rubbed his temple. He should have known there was no use getting information out of them. Shall I count down from 3? The other two nodded. 3, 2, 1. Go. Haku made no move to go, but Naruto and Lee swung theirs in at once. I got you now. The win is mine. Huh. Both boys' nets instantly ripped apart upon contact with the water. What the hell? My net was rigged. You cheated. Naruto yelled while pointing at Lee. I cheated? You are the one who rigged my net. Lee yelled back. I got one. Huh. Naruto and Lee both turned to see Haku holding a fish in his net, smiling proudly. How did you do that? Haku shrugged. It was quite easy. Turns out you just have to gently guide it through the water. Your nets ripped because you forced them in too fast. Haku handed his fish to the stand owner, who put it in a bag for him. Now if I remember right, I recall someone saying they would pay for the winner and his date's expenses. Naruto and Lee shivered as they slowly turned around. Temari stood there smiling quite evilly. They had a bad feeling in the pit of their money pouches. Several hours later and the group sat down at a couple of benches outside of the Hokage tower. Bags littered their feet, and to Naruto and Lee's dismay, they were mostly for Temari. Hey! Hinata! Lee! Everyone looked up at the unexpected shout. They saw Tenten running up to them, waving her arm happily. Tenten-senpai. Hinata got to her feet and greeted her friend. I see you're all having a good time. Tenten observed all the bags at their feet. Naruto and Lee both groaned at that comment. What's their problem? They're both just sore losers. Temari smirked at them. Tenten looked at the blonde strangely for a few moments. Do I know you from somewhere? She was on one of the teams from Sunagakure. Another voice said from behind Tenten. Tenten gave a slight shriek before turning around. I told you not to do things like that, Sasuke. She yelled at the raven-haired boy. Sasuke-san? Hinata asked in curiosity. She looked between Tenten and Sasuke for a few moments. Are you two here together? It's not a date or anything. Sasuke said in a hurry. Just two teammates enjoying our last day before the tournament. I thought Tenten would be here with Niji though. Lee butted his way into the conversation. Tenten scoffed lightly at Niji's name. I haven't talked to that asshole in weeks. What happened? You two always trained together before. Lee couldn't comprehend this sudden change. They had always been such good friends. Niji took things too far. Tenten muttered under her breath. He doesn't seem to accept you guys as rivals in this tournament at all. He'll figure it out tomorrow when they all whip your asses. Ayam yelled from her spot on the bench. We haven't been sitting around doing nothing this past month. Sasuke glared at Ayam. We'll all do our best. Hinata said quickly, attempting to defuse the situation. Yes. We shall put all our youth into tomorrow's battle. Lee pumped his fist enthusiastically. It stinks though, that we have to fight right in our first round. Tenten said to Hinata. Hinata nodded sadly. We'll do our best. She repeated. Come to think of it, if that kin chick really doesn't show up, I'll be fighting Sasuke in our first round too. Naruto rubbed his chin as he thought about it. She won't show up. Sasuke said with conviction. I watched that arrow scatter her brains. There's no way she is alive. Whatever they did to make her appear won't work at the actual tournament. Guess that means I don't have to worry about someone else whipping you before I get to. Naruto smiled brightly at the Uchiha. Heh, as if I'd let anyone beat me before I could put you in your place anyways. Despite small, Sasuke managed to smile back. Well, well. Look at all of you young shinobi. It makes me happy to see that despite being opponents in the tournament tomorrow that you can all talk so happily together. Everyone turned in surprise to see the Hokage standing behind them smiling. What's up, old man? Naruto waved happily to the Hokage, completely surprising everyone else. Naruto. You know you're not supposed to address Hokage-sama like that. I am, chided the blonde quickly. Ah, come on, this is a festival. We're not on duty or anything. Naruto leaned back on the bench and stretched, almost as if to prove his point. Ayame opened her mouth to yell at him, but the sound of the old man laughing stopped her. It's quite alright. Naruto used to be a lot worse than that. It's actually a little refreshing to hear that the old him is still around sometimes. I don't know about that. Sasuke mumbled. When I think back to how much of an idiot he was at the academy, I think there's no way anyone could miss that. I don't think he's that much different. Hinata said after giggling quietly. Same as I always remember him. Lee added. So are you. Tenten said while looking at Lee. Some people never change. I can't believe you can all talk so calmly in front of your leader like this. Temari suddenly shouted as she stood up. Such a lack of disrespect would be met with harsh discipline in my village. That isn't your village anymore. Haku said quietly from next to her. She looked at him in surprise. I know it is hard for you to imagine, but things like this are normal here. I couldn't get used to it at first either, but I really like the atmosphere here. Everyone is so friendly and carefree. Yet if their friends are in trouble, they'd go to any lengths to fight for them. Besides, Naruto already said it, but this is a festival. It's not disrespect, it's just having fun. Well said, Haku. The Hokage walked forward and patted the boy lightly on the shoulder. I knew it when I first laid eyes on you that you would make a fine addition to this village. You truly hold the will of fire that this village cherishes above all else. Will of fire? Temari turned back to the Hokage. It is the thing that gives us Konoha shinobi our strength to go beyond all odds and defeat the impossible. Our will to protect our village and our own. Surely you may have seen it in action? Temari nodded almost immediately. She didn't have to think hard to think of a good example of it. If she thought about it, how else would some genin have been able to destroy the most terrifying person in her village? Especially if he hadn't wanted to. Well, I'll be turning in for the night. I recommend you all do the same. It's a big day tomorrow. Bear in mind though, while I can't force it, I hope that no matter what the outcome, you can all continue to talk and laugh like this again afterwards. The Hokage smiled one last time at the assembled group. Good night, Hokage-sama. Everyone said back as the old man walked off. Well, Tenten yawned lightly before turning to Sasuke. I say we head back too. Sasuke nodded and they both turned to everyone else. Good night everyone. Good night. They all responded back. That means we're taking off too. Temari said as she got up. Let's leave the team to themselves. Yes. Haku immediately began picking up all her bags. Have fun carrying all that. Naruto laughed. Thank you for buying it all. Haku responded smoothly, causing Naruto's face to pale at the memory. Hurry up, Haku. Temari yelled. Coming. Haku yelled. He bowed to everyone. If I don't see any you Hinata-san or Lee-san, then I wish you best for tomorrow. I know you will all do your best. Yes. Good night, Haku-kun. Hopefully, you will have a team capable of competing in next year's Chunin exams. Lee said enthusiastically. Haku. See you. Haku bowed quickly once more before running after Temari, leaving his friends behind. You take too long. Temari scolded as she walked slowly down the street. I apologize. I was simply wishing them the best. They are my friends after all. Haku fell into pace with Temari. Friends, huh? Temari seemed to contemplate this for a while. It's funny actually. Haku smiled sadly. They're the first friends my age that I've ever really had. I was always hanging out with Zabuzasan before and we never stayed in one place for long. I didn't ask for your life story. Temari grumbled. But it's important. I know you have a hard time getting along with everyone now, but you just need to open up. They'll accept you. They did me. Did you try to kill them in the past? Temari spat, still remembering how she had almost stabbed Naruto in the head at his apartment. It didn't help that her brother ripped off their friend's arm. Wellies, actually I did. Their first crank mission was to protect a man Zabuzasan and I were supposed to assassinate. Temari stopped walking immediately and turned to him in surprise. She stared at him for a full minute. So what happened? She asked as she turned and started walking again. Haku smiled and began walking next to her again. I thought you didn't want my life story. Don't be a smartass, it doesn't suit you. Haku sighed. I actually kidnapped Lee-san and then allowed myself to get captured. I lived with the other 3 members for a full week. In our last confrontation, I had made it look like I killed Naruto-san. Lee-san and Hinata-san nearly managed to kill me just trying to avenge him. I'm actually lucky I escaped with broken arms and 1 damaged lung. Temari didn't mean to, but she burst out laughing at that. Damn, it really is a miracle you're all friends now. No, more than a miracle, it defies logic in a way that God couldn't even explain. Haku nodded excitedly. So you see. You can be their friend too. I'm not sure I want to be friends with people who break each other's arms before accepting one another. Temari turned the last corner that led onto her street. Is that really the only thing you got out of that story? Haku held his head in defeat. It took him a couple seconds to notice that Temari had stopped walking again. What's wrong? He asked. He turned to look down the street and quickly got his answer. Team 8 was walking down the street too. It was no surprise though, Sakura's apartment was here. It was still going to make a rather awkward moment. As far as Haku knew, Temari had never talked with either of the boys since she had started living here. It was at that moment that Haku saw Sakura gasp in surprise. Kiba and Shino were quick to notice and turned. They both quickly locked eyes with Temari. Kiba's look was definitely less that friendly. Temari-san can take a detour or something. Haku whispered. Temari glared back at the others before closing her eyes and shaking her head. No, she started to walk forward again. When she got past Haku, she spoke back up. You asked me what I got from your story just now, right? Haku nodded in confusion. This is my answer. She continued walking and stopped right in front of Team 8. Haku quickly caught up to her so he could hear the conversation. Good evening. Temari said as she glared down at the 3 of them. You need something? Kiba growled out. Kiba-kun. Sakura elbowed him in the ribs. Sorry, he's short-tempered, sometimes. Temari shook her head. It's all right. I understand the hostility, but I really just want to apologize. Haku wasn't sure, but Temari's voice sounded pretty edgy and not all that apologetic. I know that what my brother did was over the line and we can never make up for it, but I really want you to know that I am sorry for what has been done. It would be terrible if your career is stunted over this. Temari addressed Shino directly. The bug user pushed up his glasses before speaking. No such apology is necessary. Far worse fates befell those who fought your sibling before us. I will go as far as to say I am fortunate I only lost what I did. Furthermore, as I have told many people now, my career as a shinobi is in no danger. Having said this, your thoughtfulness is appreciated and I hope you understand that I bear you no ill will." Temari blinked several times. She hadn't expected such a lengthy response from him. She did nod though once she realized he had accepted her apology. She then turned to Kiba. "I don't owe you any kind of apology, but know this, I like to pay back my debts and I owe you one for beating me in the forest. As a fellow comrade, I want a rematch someday." Kiba looked taken aback before he gave a feral smirk. "Any time and any place. I'll whip you whenever you want." "Good, that's all the business I had with the two of you. Sakura-san, I'll see you at home." Temari turned and began walking towards the apartment. "Yeah, later." Sakura was still too stunned to completely process what had just happened. Had Temari and her team reconciled a little? Haku ran after Temari before she could shout for him again. She was walking faster than before, which made it more difficult too, since he was still carrying all that stuff. "So how was that?" Haku didn't notice at first, and maybe it was because she was trying to hide it, but her arms were shaking quite badly. Haku gave a small smile that Temari couldn't see. "You did well." Dosu sat quietly atop the head of the Shodame Hokage. Fireworks just began booming in the sky above the village, signaling the end of tonight's festival. "Look at them all. They have no idea what's coming tomorrow." Dosu rubbed the cursed seal Kabuto had given him. He had yet to see Zaku since Kabuto and taken him in for more experiments. Furthermore, he hadn't been allowed to work on the so-called secret weapon that the rest of Otogekyou was scrambling to finish even now. Dosu wasn't sure where he fit in anymore. Was there ever even a purpose for him in this village, or was he just some pawn ready to be disposed of during tomorrow's tournament? Regardless of the answer, Dosu vowed silently to make himself useful. "My existence isn't for nothing. Tomorrow will determine that beyond a shadow of a doubt." The morning sun was just shining into the Hokage's office, illuminating everything and the three people who sat inside it. The Hokage had called Guy and Kakashi here especially early, and to both his and Guy's surprise, even Kakashi had arrived on time for this. "I assume you know why you're both here?" Sarutobi asked as he fiddled with his pipe. "Yes." Both Jonin responded. They hardly needed any sort of reminder. Today was the day of the tournament, but much more importantly, today was the day their bet would be settled. "I must admit that I am not surprised it happened this way." The Hokage had a mysterious glint in his eye as he talked now. "Despite this being the first time both your teams ever competed in these exams, they both did exceptionally well. They blew past overwhelming odds and now must face off against each other in one-on-one combat. Yet you say you're not surprised?" Kakashi chuckled. "Of course he isn't." Guy bellowed. "He should expect nothing less from the students of myself and my eternal rival. Naturally, I assume you are both confident that your students will do well in this tournament, so how do you plan to determine the winner? What if both your teams are knocked out completely in the same set by those Otogekyou shinobi?" Sarutobi tapped his pipe on the desk as he waited for a response. "Impossible." They both responded together. The Hokage nodded. "I figured you'd say as much, now call it arrogance, or maybe pride, but I'd have to say I agree with you. That means though that one of your students will win the tournament. Not that there was ever any doubt it would have to be that way." Guy boasted loudly. Sarutobi smiled. "My point is, I'm willing to add an extra condition for the winner." Both Jonin suddenly looked very interested. "Extra condition?" Kakashi asked. Sarutobi nodded. "While it is normally untraditional to do it this way, I will promote the genin that wins this tournament to Chunin. Of both your teams, he or she will be the only one to receive this promotion." Both Jonin looked at each other for a moment before looking back to the Hokage. "I can't say I object." Kakashi shrugged. "It'd be a pain if I had a couple of them promoted at once anyways. I have no problems with this either. Being able to show off my chunin to Kakashi every day would be a true treat. Guy laughed loudly. Sarutobi nodded. Then it is official. I wish your students the best of luck today. It's going to be a big one. Their flames will burn so intensely that the sun itself will have to turn away. Guy shouted as he got up. He was out the window not even a second later. What a crazy trip it's been to get here. Kakashi mumbled before poofing away. The Hokage chuckled. He couldn't agree more. Dosu stood waiting inside the tunnel that led out to the main arena. The tournament was going to begin soon and he still hadn't seen any sign of Zaku. Where the hell is he? The Oto Genin huffed under his breath. He hadn't seen him all month and was really starting to worry that Kabuto had just offed him altogether. You all alone? Dosu jumped and spun around. The boy with green spandex was standing right behind him, staring at him with his big beady eyes. What do you want? Dosu nearly spat. Lee shrugged. Nothing really. I just got here myself and am waiting for my team. Looks like you are too. Dosu narrowed his eyes at the Konoha boy in front of him. Was he taking him for a fool or was he just stupid? Not that it mattered. Dosu wanted nothing to do with him. Suddenly a hand was coming at him and Dosu took a step back in surprise. What? You want to fight now? Dosu brought his arm out slowly. Fight? Lee asked curiously. No, a handshake. Wah. Dosu couldn't even finish his word, he was so surprised. You're my first opponent, Dosusan, right? Lee clarified. I want to have a most excellent first showing today. What does that have to do with a handshake? Dosu eyed him suspiciously now. Good sportsmanship, of course. Lee smiled happily at him. It is a way of saying we will both do our best and no hard feelings no matter who wins. That is the power of a handshake. At first Dosu felt like puking and then refusing the offer, but then he looked at Lee's face again. What he saw surprised him. There was no animosity or deceit in the boy's face, simply good nature. He really just wanted to wish him luck, something that made Dosu feel like reconsidering. All right then. Dosu slowly extended his arm and shook Lee's hand. Good luck. He mumbled. Yes. Good luck to you as well. Lee's smile got even bigger and it seemed to shine a little too. Dosu found him wondering how he did that. Maybe a light jutsu? But if he remembered right, this kid couldn't use ninjutsu. Hey, bushy brow. Lee turned as he heard his name. Naruto and Hinata were waving him over excitedly. Ah, there is my team. I shall see you in the ring, Dosusan. Lee gave a cheerful wave before running off to his team. Dosu didn't return the wave or greeting. Instead he just watched curiously. Getting comfortable with the natives? Dosu again almost jumped. He turned around slowly. He recognized that voice. To his annoyance, Kabuto stood right behind him, dressed in an ANBU outfit and holding a cat mask. What are you doing here? What about your preparations? Dosu whispered. Kabuto was cloaked pretty heavily by the low light in the tunnel and Dosu doubted anyone else had seen him yet. Everything is all set, and I thought you'd be interested in meeting your old teammate. Kabuto made a gesture for Dosu to turn around again. Slowly, almost as if afraid to, Dosu did as instructed. To his relief, Zaku stood right there. He looked the same as he always did. Zaku, you're all right. Dosu released the breath he didn't know he was holding. All right? Zaku chuckled. I've never been better. He patted Dosu on the back rather aggressively and Dosu immediately noticed something off. He was cold, more like freezing actually. Almost like he didn't have any body heat at all. So what's going on here? Dosu slowly backed up and looked between the two. What's the plan? How are we going to do this? Tisk, TSK, TSK. Kabuto shook his head sadly at Dosu. You haven't figured it out yet? Figured what out yet? Dosu had a bad feeling about this. You're not needed here, Dosu. That's what he's saying. Zaku laughed as Dosu looked to his teammate in surprise. Kabuto-sama has chosen me to carry out his plot this time. You're just leftover garbage that managed to get this far. But Kabuto-sama. Dosu turned to where Kabuto had been only to see he was gone now. Then what am I supposed to do? He asked in disbelief. Whatever the hell you want. Zaku continued laughing. Drop out of the tournament if you want. Maybe you can try winning. Not that someone as unnecessary as you will get past the first round. Shut up. Dosu suddenly grabbed Zaku by the collar and slammed the back of his head against the wall. A loud metal ting noise rang across the tunnel that caused Dosu to immediately let up. Zaku, what's happened to you? Dosu asked in disbelief. Did you forget who saved your ass in the forest? I'm your teammate. Try as he could, Dosu couldn't bring himself to be mad here. Not anymore. Kabuto-sama has made me strong. To me, you're nothing more than trash. Zaku turned and walked away. Dosu wasn't able to do anything but sit there in shock. Slowly the anger began building up in him and he felt the curse seal Kabuto had injected him with begin to stir. I'll win this tournament. I'll show them all that they're wrong. Dosu remembered the words he had said last night. My existence isn't for nothing. Up in the stands, a whole massive crowd was beginning to pour in. Where should we sit? Haku asked the group he was with. Anywhere is fine so long as we can see them kick some ass. Ayam said as she took a couple steps down. Temari just shrugged and silently followed after both of them. Oh. Hakusan, over here. Haku turned as he heard his name. To his surprise, he saw the old bridge builder Tazuna and his family. Tazuna-san. Haku greeted as he walked up to them. It's good to see you. We have hardly talked since the mission. You bet. I've been super busy with work. Would you believe that before Konoha used to rely on genin to do all their construction? Those punk brats didn't know a thing that they were doing. Good thing I came when I did, or this village might as well have collapsed. Tazuna waved his arms around excited as he talked. Dad, quit bragging. Tsunami smiled apologetically at the group. I'm not bragging just about myself though. Tazuna pouted. Inari's been helping plenty too. Why, pretty soon, he'll be just as good as me. Ain't that right, Inari? The small boy in question blushed at the unexpected attention and nodded a couple times. So tell me, who are your lady friends? Tazuna nudged Haku gently. I never would have taken you for a lady killer myself, what with you looking so feminine and all, but maybe some girls like that. As if it's like that. Temari huffed and looked away in embarrassment. I only came because he invited me, it's not like I had anything better to do. This is Tamara-san. Haku pointed to the former Sunagakure genin. She is just a friend. Ayame-san here is actually Lee-san's girlfriend. What, that kid got a girlfriend? Tazuna shouted as he stood up. And someone older than him. This is outrageous. Konoha has some amazing things. Why, I bet I could even hook up at my age. Tazuna broke out into a loud laughter. Dad! Shut up. A furious fist buried itself into Tazuna's head. The man sunk to his seat, unconscious. Would you children care to join us? Please don't pay any attention to the old pervert sitting here. Tsunami smiled sweetly at the group. Heh, I like you, Tsunami-san. Ayam said as she walked over. I've heard about you briefly from Lee when he was talking about his mission, it's great to meet you. Haku smiled as the two girls began talking. No surprise they got off well. Hurry up and sit. The contestants are starting to file out. Haku looked down and saw a single file line of the participating genin walking out into the area. Hurry up. Temari repeated. Right, sorry. Elsewhere in the crowd, another group talked excitedly from their seats as they watched the teams walk out. There's Sasuke-kun. Ino shouted in joy at seeing the raven-haired Uchiha walk into the arena. Is that all you ever notice? Shikamaru shook his head in disbelief at his teammate. How about taking notice of the guy who saved our lives in the forest? Ino sighed. Go Lee, she mumbled while waving her arm dully. Kiba laughed at Ino's clear lack of enthusiasm. She'll come around. Naruto will clean Sasuke's clock when they fight. Ino scoffed. As if. I don't care how strong he's got, he's a long way away from beating Sasuke. Tell him Sakura. Sakura opened her mouth but no noise came out. She snapped it shut and opened it back up. She still wasn't able to say anything. Are you serious? Ino shrieked. She was blown away by this revelation. Shino pushed his glasses up. It is only logical to assume Naruto-san could defeat Sasuke-san in combat. After all, he defeated an opponent that our whole team combined could not. Yeah. Ino shook her head. I'll root for him the whole way. Go Sasuke-kun. Everyone else could only sigh. Kakashi and Guy stood in the far back of the crowd where there were no seats. Look at them. They look ready to show the world what they are made of. Guy shouted passionately. Kakashi nodded. I hope you're ready to give up that spandex. Heh, it is you should be ready to show me your face. Sparks flew between the Jonin's eyes as they glared at each other. The Hokage sat at the very top of the stadium with his usual pipe missing. He couldn't be smoking at a time like this. It was too grand an event. It would be time for him to begin his speech in a moment. He turned and looked at his one guard, Yamato, who stood looking diligent. Relax, boy. The Hokage laughed. I cannot do that, sir. What if someone attempts something? Yamato continued to stand rigid. Who would possibly attempt something here? A third voice said. Both Yamato and Sarutobi turned to see Kabuto walking slowly towards the two of them. What are you doing here? Yamato took a threatening step forward. Kabuto chuckled as he adjusted his glasses. Surely you figured out that I'm the current leader of Otogakure. I just came to watch my remaining contestants fight. I highly doubt that. Yamato sneered as he took another step forward. Yamato, that's enough. Sarutobi said sternly. Yamato backed off but his glare remained present. You are welcome to watch this tournament, but know this, the moment you try something, you will be fighting for your life. Kabuto chuckled again. I wouldn't dream of it. Sarutobi looked at him quietly for a few moments before he got up and walked to the side of the railing. The time to begin this tournament has begun. As the Hokage talked to the audience, Hayate looked over the group of genin standing there in front of him. He gave a nasty cough before pulling out a piece of paper. There has been a slight change to the lineup. He unfolded the paper and held it out for everyone to see. Look it over and make sure you know when you're fighting. Everyone looked it over and no one was surprised by the change. Kin had been removed from the roster. The first round is Hyuga Niji vs Abumi Zaku. The second round is Tenten vs Hyuga Hinata. The third round is Kinyuta Dosu vs Rock Lee. The fourth and final round is Uchiha Sasuke vs Uzumaki Naruto. Hayate had coughed between each set of names he read. The winner of each round will progress to the next. If I call your name to come fight and you are not here in 5 minutes, you are disqualified. Hayate coughed some more. The rules are simple. There are none. The fight ends if you are no longer able to fight, dead, or I've declared a winner. There are no exceptions when I make a call. While death does occur, it is best to avoid it if possible. He gave one more nasty fit of coughing. Does everyone understand? All 8 genin nodded. Just as they did, the Hokage gave his closing words. Everyone except Niji and Zaku, go up those stairs. The first round will begin in 5 minutes. The other genin all ambled away quickly. They wanted to reach the top fast so they wouldn't miss any of the fight. Niji and Zaku, who had been standing almost on completely opposite ends, turned to face each other. If either of you have anything to say, now is the time to say it. Hayate looked at both boys. Niji shook his head. Zaku let out a small laugh. Yeah, I got something to say. You snide bastard there, get ready to be annihilated. Niji scoffed but still didn't meet Zaku's eyes. The louder the dog's bark, the weaker its bite. Zaku scowled. The hell you say to me? I'll make you eat those words. I fought that other Hyuga in the forest, so I know everything you can do. It won't work against me anymore. This time Niji actually looked at Zaku. You learned nothing about the clan's techniques fighting a weakling like that. I'll show you our full power. Zaku continued to laugh. Bring it. I take it you're both ready? Hayate continued to cough as he raised his hand into the air. Both genin nodded as they glared at each other with the intent to kill. Then, let the first fight of Konoha's Chunin exam tournament, Hayate shouted loud enough for all of the audience to hear. Everywhere there had been constant chattering, but it instantly fell silent. Kabuto smirked from up where he was. The Hyuga clan watched with a special interest from their reserved spot in the crowd. The other genin had just made it into their box and waited quietly like the rest. Dosu was still shaking in anger at being betrayed, but he was also curious. How much stronger had Zaku gotten? Begin. Hayate dropped his hand. Game over. Zaku raised his palms so they were straight forward. The 2 tubes in his hands were still there, but instead of blasts of air, fire shot from them. Niji didn't bother responding to Zaku's delusion of such an early victory. Instead he immediately ran to the right. Where you going? Show me that clan's true ability. Zaku cackled loudly as he aimed the fire after him. You sure are annoying. Niji grumbled. He continued to just run, in a circular motion around Zaku. The Otogekure genin didn't take a step in any direction, he just turned slowly as he followed after Niji. You know what? This already bores me. Zaku stopped spraying fire. Niji in turn stopped running, but he didn't charge forward either. So you're one of those types of people, huh? You won't attack until you think you know every single trick I have. Well, you're going to be waiting a long time cause I've got a lot of them. Zaku rose his arms up into firing position again, but this time aimed them to his left and right. He slowly began spinning again, this time without releasing anything. What the Niji had been fighting up to this point without his Byakugan, but he felt the need to use them, had just occurred. It was because while Zaku was indeed spinning, it was only his upper body that was. His legs were completely stationary. What Niji saw with his Byakugan surprised him completely. Yuyuri almost completely metallic. That's right. Zaku roared with laughter as his rotation picked up speed. He was just a blur in a matter of moments. Fire tornado. Zaku fired off his arm cannons, and combined with the velocity of his spin, the attack lived up to its name. TCH, damn. Niji cursed as he began forming seals. Just as the fire completely engulfed him, he slammed his hands on the ground. Niji! Tenten shouted from their box. Despite the fact she had been mad at him lately, she still didn't want to see him get hurt. He's alright. Sasuke reassured her. His Sharingan was active as he watched the battle. Apparently he's been learning some new techniques. The smoke from the flames slowly started to clear. The once grassy arena was already completely darkened, and it was only just a couple moves into the first battle. You still alive? Huh, you cocky bastard. Zaku laughed maniacally as he stumbled through the smoky terrain. You're the cocky one. Zaku turned to his left too late. Niji was right there, his palms flying forward. His Juken strikes connected in Zaku's ribcage and in his cranium. Gah! Zaku yelled as he stumbled sideways and fell over. Ah, it hurts, you bastard. My insides. Niji sensed something was wrong and took a quick step back. He did just in time. A long blade slid out of the bottom of Zaku's foot and the boy swung a deadly leg sweep right where his feet had just been. Just kidding, the blade retracted back into Zaku's body and he got back up. Your gentle fist is useless here. Niji's ever-present scowl deepened. You must be wondering how that's possible. I'll tell you. Niji didn't wait for Zaku to finish talking. He took out a couple of shuriken and whipped them with all his might at his opponent. Just as pointless. Zaku smiled as the shuriken bounced off of his body with a bunch of loud clinks. You see, you were almost right when you said my body was almost all metallic. Niji's eyes widened. You can't possibly mean, Zaku's mouth curled into a bizarre smile. That's right. I'm completely made of metal. You must have assumed that this was some kind of armor that prevented you from seeing my body, but you're wrong. It is my body. Niji slowly slid out of his Juken stance. So the reason my attack didn't work wasn't because your armor was too thick but because you don't have any insides to attack. Bingo! Zaku clapped excited. Now your prize for getting it right. I'll grant you a quick death. Zaku brought one of his arms back up and fired. Wind shot out this time instead of fire. Darn, looks like I'm out of fire. Niji ducked just in time and sprinted back to where he had been before. Ah, I see now. With the smoke gone, a wall of earth that hadn't been visible before stood at about Niji's height. You used a mud wall to shield yourself from the blast. I didn't think Hyuga used too many ninjutsu. Niji didn't answer as he disappeared back behind the wall. What? Hiding to think up a strategy? It won't work. I'll show you exactly what you're up against, so watch closely. Zaku stood straight and then a small quiet hissing began. Slowly, his torso opened up. What the hell is with this guy? The sight made Ayam want to throw up. Are those all? Tazuna whispered in awe at what he saw. Haku nodded. He's got at least a few dozen kunai, and it looks like they're ready to be launched. Worse yet, I think I see exploding tags. What Haku said was exactly right. Zaku's insides was a network of kunai ready to be fired off. I hope you like this. Zaku laughed as the kunai began firing from his stomach like they were being launched out of a machine gun. The kunai battered Niji's mud wall continuously before the first one set off, causing the others to do the same in a massive chain reaction. A massive explosion quickly created a crater in that part of the arena, cracking parts of the wall and sending the front row of the audience running. Zaku was laughing even louder than before. How awesome is this? My body is incredible. Do you see it, Dosu? Zaku turned and looked at the genin box to meet Dosu's eyes. This is why you are no longer needed. This is why I'm going to win this tournament. Not if I have anything to say about it. Zaku spun around in surprise. Niji was a few paces back, bringing his fist up. Interesting, Zaku laughed. But you can't hurt me, so, he never finished that sentence as Niji's fist slammed into his face, cracking it slightly and sending Zaku flying. The metallic boy hit the ground and bounced before he skid to a stop. Impossible. Zaku felt his face. His cheek was caved in slightly and his jaw felt like it had shifted slightly to the left. What did you do? Zaku roared in anger as he turned back. He got his answer instantly. Niji's arm up to his elbow was covered in a thick, jagged rock. More earth jutsu, eh? Well, let's see your earth jutsu deal with this. Zaku opened his mouth wide. A metal spike on the end of a metal coil sprang forward and launched itself towards the Hyuga genius. Your techniques always continue to disgust me. Niji shook his head as the coil landed to his left. Say that after I clobber you. Zaku's voice came out perfectly despite the fact he wasn't able to move his mouth. The coil began retracting and his body was pulled forward and through the air at an incredible speed. Blades came out not only from both the bottom of his feet but his elbows, shoulders, and knees too. You're pathetic. Niji sighed and rubbed his free hand through his hair. Say it again. Zaku shouted as he was just a split second from coming into contact with Niji. Before he could strike, Zaku felt his stomach gave in. A second later and his right arm bent at a comically odd angle and his right leg twisted around. How? Zaku could only ask as his coil pulled him the rest of the way. His face slammed into the ground as his mouth attempted to completely take the coil back in. After a few seconds of struggling, Zaku got his face free and managed to turn an enraged glare at Niji. You're not screaming in pain. Niji observed. You can't feel anything, can you? How pathetic. You shut the hell up. Zaku attempted to stand but stumbled down. Black liquid was pouring from several areas of his body. What the hell did you do to me? I didn't even see you move. You were looking at the wrong places at the wrong time. That's all. Niji said simply. Bullshit. I had you in my sight right up until the last second. Zaku was finally able to stand up now. You saw the past me up until the last second. The same me you are seeing now. Niji had an all-knowing smirk as he talked down to the battered mechanized shinobi. What the hell are you saying? You're not making sense. Zaku screamed at the top of his lungs. Up in the crowd, Chuji was giving his teammates a weird look. What's wrong with him? Doesn't it seem like everything he does seem kind of delayed? It's a genjutsu. Shino answered for him. A genjutsu? What kind? Ino asked curiously. Shikamaru tapped his chin a couple of times as he thought. A time delay. Niji delayed his time by a couple of seconds. Shino nodded at his theory. I'd say by 2 seconds judging by how long Zakusen takes to respond. 2 seconds, is that really that good? I mean, that sounds so short. Kiba mumbled as he turned back to the arena. Zaku was still screaming pointless obscenities. 2 seconds was more than enough for Niji to completely cripple him. In fact, I bet Niji did it when he ran behind the wall. That's why this kid has been so off since then. Shikamaru leaned back in his seat. Leave it to Lee's eternal rival to have a trick like that up his sleeve. Back on the arena, Hayate slowly walked forward. I think that's enough here. I officially declare, what the hell do you think you're doing? I ain't done yet. Zaku turned as he yelled at the proctor. I can still fight easily. Zaku took a step forward, but when he tried with his other leg he fell over completely. It's pointless. Niji said as he stared down at his beaten opponent. Since you can't feel pain you assume you can walk normally, but in reality that is impossible. You can't fight while you have to actively think about your injuries. Don't you look down on me. Zaku pressed his hands on the ground and began to lift himself up. He got up to his elbows when a loud grating noise occurred, seconds later, and his right arm completely detached itself. Zaku tumbled back to the ground and his arm lay uselessly next to him. Sparks were flying from where it had broken off and more of the black liquid began to pool under him. I'm done here. Proctor, end it. Niji shook his head and began to walk away. I said I ain't done yet. Zaku roared as he opened his mouth. The metal spike shot forward again and struck just in front of Niji's feet. What are you going to do? Trip me? Niji jeered. Just keep thinking you're funny when you're dead. Zaku began retracting the coil and his body rolled across the ground and at Niji at high speeds. His body began glowing yellow just before he reached him. Wah, say goodbye, asshole. Zaku laughed as he exploded, catching Niji in the blast. Niji! Tenten screamed again. Did he just self-destruct? Naruto asked in horror. Lee could only nod dumbly. What the hell is going on? Dosu mumbled quietly. What had all that talk been about? He had been crushed completely. In the end, the only thing he did was take some kid with him. Had Kabuto secretly betrayed both of them? No way, Hinata whispered, her Byakugan active. What? Is Niji okay? Tenten ran up to Hinata and shook her. Hinata slowly brought her finger up and pointed it at the smoke that was beginning to clear. Over with the rest of the Hyuga, Hayashi was standing on his feet with his mouth wide open. He wasn't alone either. Many Hyuga looked surprised at the sight that was before them. Even Hanabi, who was so young, knew something wasn't right. When did he learn that? When the smoke cleared, a giant spinning orb was revealed in Niji's place. The orb slowly began losing its speed and Niji became visible. In a few more seconds he quit spinning altogether. What a waste. Niji turned to the proctor. Don't you have something to say? Hayate blinked a couple of times. Oh, right. He coughed once before looking to the audience. The winner is Hyuga Niji. The crowd was silent. That had been the most bizarre fight many of them had ever seen. Slowly though, the clapping began and soon the whole crowd was cheering madly. Now that was a fight. Someone in front of Haku said. Yeah, I know. That freak didn't stand a chance against my Niji though. I have him picked to take this whole thing home, you know. Another person said. Talk about a nasty start. Haku crossed his arms as he looked at the already ripped apart arena. The grass has been burned away and there are 2 craters already. Temari observed. However, those trees on the outskirts seem to be safe. They were just outside that tornado's range. Haku nodded as he talked. Still though, Konoha is full of impressive genin. I really thought that Mecha Kid had it. Temari leaned back in her seat and stretched her arms as she spoke. Haku shook his head. I knew Nejizen wouldn't lose. I haven't met him but he is Leezen's eternal rival. There's no way he'd lose here. What the hell does that even mean? The Hokage looked at Kabuto curiously out of the corner of his eye. Was that boy's body you're doing? Kabuto smirked as he stared down at the arena still. The sun reflected off his glasses, making it impossible to see his eyes. You could say that. Made for quite the interesting show, don't you think? The Hokage didn't bother responding. Instead he looked back to the arena as well. Hayate was about to call the next 2 names. Will the next 2 contestants, Tenten and Hyuga Hinata, please make your way down to the arena, please? The proctor's call got the crowd talking about the next match now. Who do you think is going to win this one? Chuji looked at Shikamaru. I don't know a lot about that Tenten girl but I know she's the one who taught Hinata archery. With my current information I would have to place my bet on Hinata. I will have to disagree with you, Shikamaru-san. Shino leaned forward in his seat. Tenten-san is well known as a master of all weapons. The range and versatility is bound to give her an advantage. I'm with Shino on this one. Ino shouted. She's on Sasuke-kun's team after all. Kiba shook his head. I don't know. If she has been working out like Naruto, I wouldn't underestimate her. Well, we'll find out in a few minutes. Shikamaru scratched his head as he looked to the box the genin contestants were in. Tenten took a couple deep breaths before she vaulted the railing and flew towards the arena floor. She landed in front of the stairs that led up just as Niji got there. Good going, Niji. Tenten said, attempting to talk for the first time in a while. Niji walked right past her before stopping. Do your best, Tenten. He then continued walking. Tenten gave a short nod. You know it. A second later and Hinata landed right next to Tenten. Ready? The older girl asked as she turned to her archery partner. Hinata nodded. Yes. She then forced a smile at her friend. It's going to be hard to fight you, Tenten-senpai. Come on, you just said you were ready. Tenten shoved Hinata's shoulder lightly as she laughed. We're the only two kunoichi to make it this far. We have to show everyone else that we're not messing around. We can be just as good as the guys. As Tenten talked, both girls were walking to the center of the ring. That means hold absolutely nothing back. This is our chance. Hinata nodded again. I'll do my best, Tenten-senpai. I hope we can continue to train together when this is all over. Hinata stopped walking, they were in the center. Tenten smiled and began walking backwards. Of course we can. No matter what the outcome, we already agreed last night that we'd remain friends. Tenten stopped after having moved about 10 paces. Hayate glanced at both girls briefly. Are you both ready? They both nodded. Hayate raised his arm above his head and shouted loud enough for the crowd. Let the second match, no matter what, one of us is pulling ahead here. You ready, Kakashi? Guy smiled confidently at his rival. You say something? Damn you. Care a little. Begin. Hayate dropped his hand and immediately jumped backwards to avoid possibly getting caught in the crossfire. He needn't have bothered though. Neither girl made a move at each other right away. Hinata simply activated her Byakugan and slipped into her stance. Tenten pulled out 2 scrolls and held them in front of her. If Hinata was surprised by the sight of both scrolls, she didn't show it. You intend to show them your flashiest move right off the start, senpai? Hinata hadn't ever actually seen the move, but Lee had described it to her before. Of course. Tenten gave a bright smile as she set the scrolls on the ground. I told you, I intend to show everyone what kunoichi can do. She ran through a set of seals. Sashoryu. White smoke quickly covered Tenten and 2 smoky dragons rose to the sky, spinning around each other as they went up. Tenten burst from the smoke and seemed to hang suspended in the middle of the 2 dragons. The smoke faded to reveal both her scrolls had completely unfolded. I hope you're ready, Hinata. Tenten reached her hand towards one scroll and a kunai appeared. She reached her other hand forward and a kama appeared. She threw both of them. Hinata stepped nimbly to the side and then back. Both weapons planted harmlessly into the ground. She quickly took another sidestep and this time avoided a set of shuriken. Next she dodged a spear as it planted into the ground. Soon, Tenten was throwing all kinds of exotic weapons faster than the eye could see. Kaiten. Hinata whispered as she relented to the overwhelming assault and began spinning. All the weapons began bouncing off of her shield and plopped to the ground pointlessly. Tenten smirked as she threw the last of her weapons. I was wondering when you would do that. Hinata's spinning came to a stop. As she did, her bow and quiver were revealed. She already had an arrow ready to fire. You're all out, senpai. Hinata pointed the weapon at her and fired it. Tenten had no chance of dodging in midair. That's where you're wrong. Tenten's smirk got bigger as she moved her fingers around. Hinata's arrow stopped in midair. Hinata didn't have to look hard to see Tenten had just connected chakra wires to all of her previously thrown weapons and had just entangled the arrow she fired in them. Now let's see you block all those again. Tenten pulled her arms back and all the weapons began to lift. Kaiten. Hinata began spinning immediate, but her progress halted before she could get going fast at all. Darn it. Hinata realized too late that Tenten had set the weapons around her just right. When she pulled the weapons up, she had the strings positioned in a way that snared her the moment she started to spin. Ready to give up? Tenten laughed as her weapons hung menacingly above Hinata. Of course the proctor might consider ending this even if you don't want to. It was Hinata's turn to smirk. Only if he's as unobservant as you are. A second later and Hinata vanished in a poof of smoke. No way. Tenten shouted in surprise. When did you have time to use the shadow clone jutsu? One of the kunai that Tenten had attached to her strings poofed in smoke and Hinata was revealed. Right at the moment you least expected. Hinata grabbed a hold of the wire and channeled chakra into it. Like I'd let you pump chakra right into my system. Tenten immediately disconnected all her wires. All the weapons that were suspended in the air fell to the ground along with Hinata. That was a good strategy though. Tenten complimented as she followed after them. She landed nimbly on her feet and the two scrolls fell around her. Hinata picked up her bow and quiver that the clone had dropped when it vanished. Thank you. I barely had time to pull it off. Ino let out a yell of frustration. Wait. What the hell just happened down there? 1 second she was there and then wasn't, and then Tenten just dropped all her weapons for no reason. Shikamaru sighed at his teammates' confusion. I'll explain. Hinata created a shadow clone while the Kaiten was still blocking our view. She then hinged into a kunai and waited for Tenten to connect her chakra wires to all the weapons. The clone simply stayed out in the open as bait. Okay. Ino nodded, but he was still very clearly lost. But why did she disconnect the wires and drop her weapons? Hinata would have channeled her chakra through the wire and could have attacked Tenten that way. It is just another way she is capable of using her juken. Shikamaru explained before turning away, apparently deciding it was too troublesome to explain any more. I didn't know Hinata could do stuff like that. Ino suddenly looked worried for Tenten. She had placed her bet on her after all. Regardless of the outcome, Tenten has given herself a huge field advantage with her opening attack. Shino said as he eyed the area that was completely littered with all kinds of weapons. How do you figure? Sakura looked at her stoic teammate. You'll see in a minute. They're moving. The closest weapon to Tenten was a spear that was sticking out of the ground. She picked it up and spun it around a couple times, testing its weight. All right. She seemed satisfied and without missing another beat she charged forward. Hinata fired an arrow. Tenten swung the spear around and knocked it aside. Hinata fired another and Tenten again deflected it. You won't beat me with weapons, Hinata. You should know that. Hinata threw her bow to the side and slipped into her stance, the quiver still on her back. Tenten thrust the spear forward. Hinata stepped sideways and then moved in, swinging her palm forward. Tenten spun the spear around her back and held the pole in front of herself, stopping Hinata's palm far enough away to be safe from her juken. I already know to fight you at a range with weapons, Hinata. I've trained with a Hyuga for more than a year. Tenten shoved forward, knocking Hinata off balance. Tenten spun the spear around a couple more times before she brought it down over the top of her head. That doesn't mean you know everything. Hinata pulled an arrow out of her quiver and swung it up. I've been a Hyuga all my life. The arrow struck just below the spearhead and her arrow snapped it right in two. Tenten's spear was now nothing more than just a staff. TCH, damn. Tenten stumbled forward from the unexpected shift in weight. Hinata didn't waste the opportunity to press on the attack and unleash another juken palm. Thinking fast, Tenten grabbed one of the nearest weapons on the floor, her Kuzurigama. She picked up the weighted end, but that didn't matter, she needed the chain. Tenten pulled the weapon up and held it right in front of Hinata's palm, effectively stopping the strike so she was safe from the nerve attack again. Having got a firm footing now, Tenten pumped chakra into her feet and immediately put more distance between herself and Hinata. I won't let you get away this time. Hinata reached down and pulled 2 latches. The weights she wore around her legs tumbled off. Hinata was after Tenten faster than she was able to escape. You're the one who's going to need to escape. Tenten grabbed onto a giant ring that was a sharp blade on the outside edges. It looked like a giant, deadly hula hoop. Tenten stepped so she was on the inside of the weapon. I hope you're ready. She ran forward to meet Hinata's charge. You may be able to use whatever weapon you pick up with ease, senpai, but that weapon won't help you now that my weights are off. Hinata jumped and landed on top of the ring as Tenten swung it. Not bad. Tenten praised as she flipped the other end backwards, forcing the end Hinata was on upwards. Hinata back flipped and landed on her feet. Tenten flipped the weapon so she was outside it and swung it around in a wide arc. Hinata ducked down. Tenten brought it around again, this time aiming low. Hinata jumped over it this time. Now take this. Tenten took a step backwards and whirled the ring blade while it was on its side. The blade rolled on the ground at an incredible speed like it was a tire. Hinata rolled out of the way and charged forward again. Tenten picked up a katana that was right next to her and used the hilt to deflect Hinata's latest juken. You can't stay outside of my range forever, senpai. Hinata delivered a powerful spinning kick. I can try. Tenten bent backwards to dodge the kick. She hated to admit it, but that extra training Kakashi had made her do was the only thing that allowed her to keep up with Hinata's increased speed. You should look behind you, by the way. The ring blade Tenten had thrown had circled around and was just about to come back. I already know. Hinata jumped to the side at the last second, the blade was now inches away from running into Tenten. Smart. Tenten cursed and held her katana in front of her. The ring blade hit the katana and the ring was deflected, but her katana was also knocked from her grip. She immediately grabbed the next weapon lying on the ground. A pair of tonfa. Temari snorted as she watched. This is stupid. She's just picking up whatever weapon she can and hoping it will work. That Hyuga girl is going to win at this rate. Haku shook his head. You're partially right, but Tentensen is more incredible than you seem to think. Temari gave Haku a doubtful glance. I'm serious, did you see when she picked up that katana? Her form was flawless. I would have thought she was raised fighting by the way of the sword. Yet now she is using all these other weapons with just as equal a skill. She's a genius. Temari turned back to the arena. Tenten was effectively holding off Hinata's strikes with the tonfa and seemed to even be pushing back slightly too. If I didn't know you were such a perfectionist, I would doubt what you said about her form being flawless. All the same, that just makes that Hyuga girl incredible, being able to withstand a barrage of all these weapons. Just as she said that, Hinata shattered both tonfa with her elbows. Haku nodded exaggeratedly. Of course. I never said Hinata-san would lose. He then noticed Hinata tense up. Although, she looked surprised by Tentensen's newest weapons. Hinata watched anxiously as Tenten flexed her fingers that were now through a pair of chakra knives. Where did you get those? Tenten smiled as she inspected the way they looked on her hand. Just a gift from my sensei, nice, aren't they? Tenten pumped some chakra into the blades and stepped forward while swinging them. Hinata stepped backwards and dodged a couple swings. She didn't dare counterattack until she knew Tenten's elemental affinity. You're suddenly much more defensive. Tenten didn't miss Hinata's change in tactics. Don't talk like you don't know why. Hinata pulled out a couple shuriken. She jumped backwards and swung them with all her might. It's not like I'm trying to hide it. Tenten swung at all the shuriken. They all split in half on contact. Is it also wind? Hinata asked in disbelief. She studied the shuriken a little closer and noticed that it looked like they had been melted. Noit's fire. Right on. Tenten held her weapons up a little higher. Hinata could now see that they were glowing bright red. Hinata sighed. If that's the case, I know just the way to stop them. She reached into her own pouch and pulled out 2 of her own chakra blades. You have some too? Tenten couldn't believe her eyes. Naruto-kun lent them to me before my battle began. Hinata verified as she slipped the blades around her fingers. Well, I hope for your sake that your affinity is water. 'Cause if it isn't, I'm about to sear right through them. Tenten charged forward. You're forgetting something important. Hinata ran forward as well. And what's that? Tenten swung her right arm forward. Hinata mimicked the action. I have a Kekii Genkai. Their blades connected and made a loud clang, but other than that, nothing else happened. What's going on? Tenten asked in surprise. My blade reacts differently to my chakra because of my Kekii Genkai. Hinata explained. At first we couldn't figure out what its ability was, but after we thought about it, it started to make sense. It sure doesn't make any sense to me. Tenten pulled her blade back and jumped backwards. What just happened? My blade isn't getting hot anymore. When you think about what my eyes let me do, it starts to make sense. Hinata kept talking calmly. As a Hyuga, I can attack your chakra directly and shut you down. That's normally impossible to do to weapons that channel chakra though. Tenten's eyes widened. So your blade shut down my blade's ability to channel chakra? Hinata nodded. Your blade is just an ordinary combat knife now. The chakra blade in Tenten's right hand slipped from her fingers and fell to the ground. She gripped her other one tightly. It got so hot that steam was rolling off of it now. Don't think that means I'm going to give up. Your blade's only ability is taking the abilities of others. It might as well be normal too. Tenten threw the blade she was holding. It sunk into the ground just in front of Hinata's feet. I never said anything about giving up. Hinata shook her head. Suddenly, the blade at her feet started whistling loudly. By the way. Tenten smiled now. I probably should have mentioned that with the fire affinity, the blade explodes if I pump too much chakra into it and then let go. Crap. Hinata didn't get a chance to say anything more as she was engulfed in an explosion. Tenten didn't waste another moment. She was running through the weapons, looking for something in particular. Where are they? She knew Hinata had time to active the rotation and would be after her in just a few moments. As predicted, she heard Hinata's footsteps just seconds after the explosion. Here. Tenten found what she was looking for and scooped it up. I won't give you the chance to use another weapon. Hinata shouted. She lunged forward at full speed and managed to spear Tenten right in the ribs with a full Juken strike. Gah! Tenten gave a cough of blood and dropped two small balls. They hit the ground and then popped. Black smoke poured out of them, engulfing the two. Yeah. Go Hinata. Naruto had been cheering the whole time, but his vigor was renewed now that Hinata had landed a good shot. Tenten really messed up grabbing those smoke bombs. Hinata can see through the smoke like it's not even there. Sasuke shook his head. You're thinking about it the wrong way, Naruto. Huh? What do you mean? Sasuke didn't answer. He was watching the arena intently. Naruto turned back and saw that both Hinata and Tenten had broken free from the smoke and were continuing their battle. Tenten grabbed the katana she had dropped earlier. She turned to Hinata and swung the sword. Hinata stepped to the side and delivered a spinning kick. Tenten blocked with her sword's broad side but then cringed. Hinata's previous strike continued to sting. That cringe cost Tenten. Hinata stepped in and landed another strike, right in her upper shoulder. Tenten yelped in pain and the katana she was holding slipped from her grasp. Hinata struck again, but this time Tenten blocked with her forearms. The force of the blow sent her flying backwards and she landed painfully on her back, coughing up more blood as she did. This fight ends now, senpai. Hinata intended to give the finishing blow. Tenten sat up and wiped away the blood from her lip. When her hand finished passing through, it revealed a smile on her face. For you it does. What? It was then that Hinata felt it. She was numb all over. How did she not notice this before? What did you do? Hinata was starting to have a hard time standing properly. Those smoke bombs had a paralysis poison mixed in. Tenten explained as she stood up. She grabbed a bowstaff that had been lying right next to her as she did. But you stood in it too. Hinata protested. Why aren't you affected? Tenten held up an empty needle. Hinata finally realized her mistake. The antidote. Tenten verified. You assumed that I grabbed the smoke bombs when I was looking around all my weapons. The truth is I grabbed this. Hinata wasn't sure how much time she had until the poison took full effect, but now that she had the facts she didn't have a second to lose. She ran forward again, but even she noticed how much slower her movements were already. Even though Tenten had just gotten struck by several juken blows, she was still faster than Hinata, who had the poison seeping through her body. Tenten swung the staff around expertly. The poison normally takes 4 minutes for it to reach maximum effect. I'd say you have about half that time left before you're completely immobile. She deflected Hinata's strike to the left and then swung the staff high. With a loud clap, it connected with Hinata's forehead and sent her straight to the ground. Damn! Hinata held her head gingerly as she stumbled back to her feet. Doesn't feel too good, does it? Tenten swung the pole around and caught Hinata right in the ribs. Hinata fell back to her knees and leaned on the ground with one hand. Be thankful I'm using this staff. You would really die if I used something with a blade. Thanks for your consideration. Hinata tried sounding sarcastic, but it just didn't work with her. She got back to her feet and was horrified to realize she could barely even walk anymore. Her movements were even more sluggish than before. She settled into her juken stance and attempted to run forward, but she could normally walk faster than she was running now. You're not really serious about fighting like that, are you? Tenten stepped out of the way of Hinata's slow thrust. Hinata turned and attempted to strike again, but Tenten swung the staff low, tripping Hinata and sending her tumbling to the ground again. Hinata groaned as she lay on her back. She then rolled onto her stomach and attempted to lift herself back up. She got only a couple of inches before she felt her body lock up entirely. No, Hinata slid back down completely and lay still. Tenten bounced the staff lightly on her shoulders. Looks like this is my win. The crowd was already screaming excitedly at the conclusion to the match. Tenten turned around and started waving excitedly. Meanwhile, Hinata's mind was in overload, screaming internally at herself. She had spent countless hours every day training. After years of being looked at as a failure, this was finally her chance to show the whole village that she wasn't the same girl she had been. The girl who gave up and quit every time there was even the slightest setback. Hayate slowly walked up and looked down at Hinata. I declare the winner of this match. Hayate suddenly started coughing. He began coughing so bad that he doubled over and spit went flying. Hinata. The Hyuga heiress tilted her head upwards in surprise. Naruto was looking down, screaming at the top of his lungs. Get up, Hinata. Not for me, but for yourself. Hinata looked at him in surprise. Every time she had felt down, she had thought of him. He was her strength, her guiding light. Now he was again cheering her on. He believed in her. Hinata wanted to laugh. After everything, she still didn't believe in herself. She was laying here because there had always been doubt. There was going to be no more of that though. She would stand on her own 2 feet from now on. She would win this yet for herself. She used her Byakugan to look not outwards, but within herself and at her own organs. She found the poison that was floating within her system, and by pumping chakra into the areas where the poison was she began to drain it out. It wasn't a lot, but she should at least be able to move now. I'm not done yet. Hinata placed both her hands back on the ground. She let out a grunt of exertion as she slowly began to push herself up, but it wasn't fast enough. Tenten's back was still to her and waving at the audience, but that would only last a couple more seconds. I'm not done. Hinata repeated to herself. Her hands were glowing brightly with her chakra as she got to her knees. Come on. Hinata urged herself mentally. She got up on one foot, her other knee was still on the ground. The chakra in her hands was blazing wildly. What's going on? Tenten still hadn't turned around, but she did notice the crowd was going even more nuts than before. They were also shouting something weird, but she couldn't figure it out from the way their voices were meshing. Then she heard it. The sound of energy waving wildly behind her. Tenten spun around and saw Hinata running towards her, not at full speed but faster than a few minutes ago. Impossible, it's not impossible. Hinata shouted. The chakra around her hands was shaped like lions. It's the strength of my determination and hard work. Hinata swung her first fist forward. Give it up. I'm a genius of weapons. Tenten brought her staff in front of herself to guard. Hinata's fist shattered it completely, sending shards of splinters everywhere, some of which hit Tenten in the face. Involuntarily, she closed her eyes and brought her hands back. I won't ever give up because I'm a genius of hard work. Hinata took another step forward and swung her fist. Juho Sashiken. It connected with Tenten's jaw and sent her flying. She hit the ground with a loud thud and didn't move again. She was unconscious. The crowd was silent. Just a moment ago and Hinata had been down for the count. Now she was up and Tenten was unconscious. Even Hayate was too stunned to say anything at the moment. Two did it. Hinata stumbled and almost slipped to her knees. She could still feel the poison running through her body. Some form of adrenaline must have allowed her to overcome the effects temporarily. Yes. Go Hinata. You won. You did it. Only one voice penetrated the total silence of the arena. Hinata smiled happily. That's the way to do it, Hinata. Lee's voice joined in next. Way to show the world your youth. That's my student. Her whole team was yelling for her. Then she heard it. At first it was faint, but people were clapping. She looked into the crowd with her Byakugan and saw Haku's group, and in a different area, the other rookies, all clapping excitedly. Then she saw something that blew her away. The entire Hyuga clan that had come to see the tournament stood tall and were giving a reserved clap, even her father. Soon the whole crowd was going wild again, and even louder than before. They were cheering for her. For her. The winner is Hyuga Hinata. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. If you want early updates, check out Patreon. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off.